The morning sun rose over the fields of New Jeju Colony, painting the crops in shades of gold and amber. 8-year-old Daewon pressed his face against the transport window, watching the harvest drones move through the wheat. His eyes sparkled with excitement. Today was special. Today his class got to see the machines up close. "Stay in your seats," called out Teacher Mi-young from the front of the transport. 20 children sat in rows, some chatting, others looking out at the landscape. Daewon sat next to his best friend, a quiet boy named Chanwoo who loved drawing pictures of spaceships. The transport hummed along the dirt road, kicking up small clouds of dust. 2 human security escorts rode in a vehicle ahead of them. This was standard procedure. The colony was safe, but the galaxy beyond was not always friendly. Daewon's father had explained this to him once. "We're new out here," Taesung had said. "Other species have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. We've only been doing it for a few hundred." Daewon didn't think much about aliens. He knew they existed. Sometimes he saw them on the news feeds his mother watched. Hana worked at the medical center and sometimes treated alien visitors. But here on New Jeju, life was simple. Farms, schools, families. It was home. The transport slowed down as they approached the southern fields. The harvest drones were massive machines, each one the size of a house. They moved on multiple legs, cutting and processing grain with mechanical precision. The children gasped and pointed. Even Teacher Mi-young smiled. Technology never stopped being amazing. "We'll stop here for 30 minutes, she announced. "You can get out and observe, but stay close. Don't touch anything." The children piled out of the transport, their voices rising in excitement. Daewon ran toward the nearest drone, Chanwoo following close behind. The machine towered above them, its metal legs moving in perfect rhythm. Daewon could hear the hum of its processors, smell the fresh-cut grain. One of the security escorts, a young woman named Private Soo-jin, stood nearby with her rifle slung over her shoulder. She was relaxed, smiling at the children's enthusiasm. The other escort, Corporal Hyunwoo, was checking his communication device near the transport. The sky was clear and blue. Nothing seemed wrong. Then Corporal Hyunwoo's device beeped urgently. His expression changed. Daewon noticed because he was always watching the adults, trying to understand their world. Hyunwoo spoke quickly into his comm, his voice low. Soo-jin's smile faded. She straightened, her hand moving to her rifle. "Everyone back to the transport," Teacher Mi-young called out, her voice still calm but with an edge of urgency. "Now, children, quickly." The children sensed the change in mood. They began moving back toward the vehicle, some confused, others picking up on the adults' tension. Daewon grabbed Chanwoo's hand and started walking. That's when the ships appeared. 3 angular craft dropped from the clouds, moving with aggressive speed. They were dark red and black, covered in sharp edges and weapon ports. "Alien ships!" Daewon had never seen real ones before, only pictures. These looked mean. The ships landed in a triangle formation around the human transport, blocking the road. Dust billowed up from their landing thrusters. The children clustered together, some crying now. Teacher Mi-young pulled them close, her arms spread wide as if she could shield all 20 of them. Corporal Hyunwoo and Private Soo-jin moved to the front, their weapons ready but pointed down. They were only 2 people. Their job was to protect, not to start a war. Ramps descended from the alien ships. Figures emerged and Daewon's breath caught. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with thick gray skin covered in bony ridges. They wore armor that looked like it had grown from their bodies. Their faces were flat with small, cold eyes. Each carried a weapon that crackled with blue energy. The aliens were Vrethka. Daewon recognized them from his sister Bora's school presentations. She had told him they were warriors, that they controlled many planets, that they thought they were better than everyone else. The lead Vrethka stepped forward. Symbols on his armor marked him as someone important. Behind him, a dozen more warriors formed a line. They looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects. "You are in Vrethka survey territory," the leader said. His voice came through a translator device, making it sound harsh and mechanical. "Your presence requires tribute. Surrender your supplies and technology." Corporal Hyunwoo stepped forward, keeping his voice steady. "This is human colony space, designated and registered with the Galactic Council. We have legal claim here. You have no authority to demand anything." The Vrethka leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "Human, your species is young. You know nothing of how the galaxy works. We take what we want from those too weak to stop us." We don't want trouble, Hyunwoo said. Let us pass. We're just teachers and children. Children? The Vrethka tilted his head. Ah, yes. Offspring. Your species keeps them close, soft, weak. He looked at the clustered children with something like contempt. We should teach you the cost of defiance. Everything happened very fast. The Vrethka leader, whose name was Thulvan, though the humans didn't know this yet, moved toward the children. Teacher Mi-young tried to step in front, but another Vrethka grabbed her and pushed her aside. The children screamed. Thulvan reached out and grabbed the nearest child. It was Daewon. The boy had been standing at the edge of the group, still holding Chanwoo's hand. The alien's grip was like iron around his small arm. No! Corporal Hyunwoo shouted, raising his weapon. Thulvan moved faster. He activated his energy pike, a weapon that crackled with blue lightning, and then he struck Daewon across the chest with it. The energy tore through the boy's body. Daewon's scream cut off instantly. He went limp in the alien's grip, smoke rising from the burn across his small chest. Thulvan dropped him to the ground like discarded trash. Private Sujin fired. Her shot hit the Vrethka leader's shield, splashing harmlessly off the energy barrier. The other Vrethka raised their weapons. Stop, Hyunwoo roared into his comm. Medical emergency. Child down. Requesting immediate evacuation. Thulvan laughed. Next time you will show proper respect. He gestured to his warriors. They began walking back to their ships, their point made. Teacher Mi-young was already on the ground next to Daewon, her hands shaking as she checked his pulse. He was alive, but barely. The energy burn had nearly killed him. Sujin was crying as she radioed for help, giving medical details through her tears. Chanwoo stood frozen, still holding the air where his friend's hand had been. The Vrethka ships lifted off, leaving the humans in the dust. They had made their demonstration of power. In their minds, they had taught the weak humans a lesson about respect and hierarchy. They had no idea what they had actually done. High above in orbit, on the Vrethka fortress ship Crimson Mandate, Thulvan reported to his superiors. He had disciplined an inferior species. He expected commendation. In the transport, emergency medical supplies were torn open. Teacher Mi-young worked on Daewon with shaking hands, trying to stabilize him until help arrived. A rescue shuttle was already launching from New Jeju's main settlement. Daewon's parents had been notified. Hana, the medical officer, was gathering equipment with cold efficiency, pushing down her panic. Tae-sung, the defense coordinator, was already making calls, and across human space on military channels and civilian networks alike. The news was starting to spread. Someone had attacked a human child. The word moved like wildfire through ships and stations. In the messages there was no debate, no politics, no discussion. There was only rage, and the clock had started ticking. The message reached Admiral Sung-min while he was reviewing supply reports in his quarters. He was 3 star systems away from New Jeju, commanding the 3rd Battle Group on routine patrol. The communication came flagged as Priority 1, medical emergency, civilian casualty. He opened it, expecting an accident report. Mining incident, maybe? Equipment failure. What he read instead made his blood turn to ice. Get me all ship captains on immediate conference, Sung-min said to his aide. His voice was quiet, but the young officer recognized the tone. He had served under the admiral for 6 years and had never heard that particular sound before. It was the voice of controlled fury. Within 2 minutes, 17 faces appeared on the holographic display. Ship captains, all of them experienced, all of them reading the same report that Sung-min had just finished. You've all seen it, the admiral said. No preamble needed. A Vrethka officer attacked an 8-year-old human child during an illegal shakedown operation. The child is in critical condition. The Vrethka have retreated to their fortress ship in the Hanel system. One of the captains, a woman named Captain In-soo, spoke first. Sir, do we have authorization from Earth Command for a response? Sung-min's jaw tightened. Earth is 14 hours away by comm relay. That child might not have 14 hours. He paused. I'm invoking emergency protocols. We're moving now. We'll file the reports later. No one objected. Several captains nodded. Calculate jump coordinates for Hanel 7, Sung-min ordered. Combat formation. We arrive ready for war. The conference ended. Across 17 warships, alarms began to sound. Crews rushed to battle stations. Marines checked their weapons. Pilots ran toward their fighters. The 3rd Battle Group, one of humanity's most powerful military formations, began preparation for faster-than-light travel. In the engine room of the flagship, a young technician named Jamin worked the controls with shaking hands. He had a nephew about day one's age. The boy loved to draw pictures and send them across space to his uncle. The thought of anyone hurting that child made Jamin want to scream. Instead, he channeled it into his work, running the calculations faster than he ever had before. The battle group jumped. On New Jeju, in the colony's medical center, Dr. Yoonji worked over Daewon's small body with desperate precision. The energy weapon had caused massive internal damage. His heart had stopped twice already, each time she had brought him back. Hana stood nearby, not as his mother but as another medical professional, handing instruments, monitoring readouts. Her face was pale but steady. She could not afford to break down, not yet. Her son needed her training, not her tears. Tae-sung stood outside the operating room, his forehead pressed against the glass. He was the defense coordinator for the entire colony. He had protocols to follow, reports to file, security measures to implement. But right now he was just a father watching his child fight for life. Bora sat in the waiting area, her hands clenched into fists. She was 16 years old, studying engineering, dreaming of building better ships and faster engines. She had always seen the universe as full of possibilities. Now she saw it as full of threats. She would never forget the Vrethka. Never. Commander Dijo arrived at the medical center still in his duty uniform. He was the military liaison for New Jeju, technically in charge of the colony's small defense force. He had already filed 17 reports and made 23 calls. The machinery of human military response was grinding into motion, and it was terrifying in its efficiency. "Any change?" he asked Tae-sung quietly. "He's alive." "Barely." Tae-sung's voice was hollow. "Jiho, tell me they're going to pay for this." "They will." Jiho's voice was absolute certainty. "I've seen the traffic on the military networks. Every ship within 5 systems is moving. The third battle group jumped 20 minutes ago. They'll be here soon." Inside the operating room, Yoonji called out orders. His blood pressure is dropping again. "Get me another unit. And someone tell me the nanite repair systems are ready." A nurse, a woman named Hae-won, worked the controls. "Nanites deploying now. Targeting the cardiac tissue first." The microscopic medical robots entered Daewon's bloodstream, programmed to repair damage at the cellular level. It was cutting-edge human technology, developed because humans kept finding themselves in dangerous situations across the galaxy. Other species had similar tech, but humans had refined it. They had to. They were fragile compared to many aliens, so they had learned to heal better and faster. Daewon's vital signs stabilized slightly, just slightly. It was enough to give Yoonji hope. On the Vrethka fortress ship Crimson Mandate, Thulvan was filing his report with satisfaction. He had shown the humans their place. The Dominion would approve. Perhaps he would receive a commendation. His superior officer, a Vrethka commander named Graxel, reviewed the report with less enthusiasm. "You struck their offspring?" Graxel asked. "Yes, Commander." "To demonstrate dominance. They refused to pay tribute." Graxel made a rumbling sound. The Vrethka had been expanding their territory for centuries, taking what they wanted from weaker species. It was their way. But something about this felt wrong. The humans are new to the galaxy, but they have been aggressive in defending their interests. Striking one of their young may provoke a response, Thulvan scoffed. They are soft, weak. They keep their offspring close, coddle them. It shows their inferior nature. What can they do? File a complaint with the Galactic Council? Perhaps. Graxel was not convinced, but he was also not willing to show weakness by retreating. Maintain defensive posture. Monitor their communications. What the Vrethka did not understand, what their culture had never developed, was the concept of species-wide protective instinct. Vrethka young were raised in communal facilities, trained from birth for combat. Individual offspring held little emotional value. It was efficient. It was logical. It meant they could not possibly understand what they had triggered. Across human space, the reaction was spreading like a shockwave. On Earth, in the halls of government, officials were scrambling. On Mars, in the military academies, young cadets watched the news with clenched fists. On distant mining stations, rough workers who had never met Daewon or his family felt their anger rising. It was not just about one child. It was about what that child represented. Innocence, future, hope, everything. Humans fought to protect when they left their cradle world and ventured into the dangerous galaxy, and someone had hurt him. On the UHS Defiant, flagship of the 3rd Battle Group, Admiral Sungmin stood on the bridge as they approached Hunnell system. His crew worked with focused intensity. Every person there knew what they were about to do, sir. We'll arrive in 30 seconds, reported the navigation officer, a young woman named Yu Jin. All ships confirm ready status, added the communications officer. Sungmin nodded. He had been in combat before. He had fought pirates, defended colonies, escorted civilian ships through dangerous space. But this felt different. This was not duty. This was personal. Weapons, what's our status? He asked. Jinho, the weapons officer, checked his console. All batteries loaded and ready. Magnetic accelerators charged. Missile tubes hot. We can fire on your order, sir. Good. Sungmin took a breath. When we arrive, we broadcast one message to the Vrethka. One chance to surrender. After that, we don't stop until their fortress is burning. Yes, sir. The seconds counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The 3rd Battle Group dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 17 warships materialized around the Vrethka fortress like vengeful angels. The Crimson Mandate hung in space near the moon, massive and threatening. It was designed to intimidate, covered in weapon ports and armor. It had never faced a unified human fleet before. On the Vrethka fortress, alarms began blaring. Thulvan rushed to the command center where Graxel was already barking orders. 17 human warships just appeared in combat formation. An officer shouted, "They're surrounding us." Graxel's eyes widened. Battle stations. Ray shields to full power, but the Vrethka were slow. They had been relaxed, confident. It took precious seconds to bring their systems online. Admiral Sungmin opened a channel. His face appeared on every screen in the Vrethka fortress. "I am Admiral Sungmin of the Human Defense Fleet," he said, his voice carrying across space. "You attacked our child. Surrender now or burn." Thulvan pushed forward to the communication station. "This is outrageous. You have no authority here. We are a sovereign military force." Sungmin's expression did not change. "You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. After that, we will consider you hostile." Graxel looked at Thulvan. The younger officer's arrogance had put them in this position. But retreating now would show weakness. The Dominion did not show weakness. "Activate all weapons," Graxel ordered. "Target their flagship." It was the wrong choice. It was the last choice they would make as free beings. Admiral Sungmin watched the Vrethka fortress power up its weapons. He felt no satisfaction, no joy. Only cold purpose. "All ships," he said quietly. "Execute attack pattern. Show them what happens when you hurt our children." The human fleet opened fire, and the galaxy learned a new lesson about humanity. The first shots came from the human destroyers on the outer ring. Magnetic accelerator cannons launched metal slugs at a fraction of light speed. The rounds hit the Vrethka fortress shields in a cascade of blue energy flashes. The shields held, but they flickered. Lieutenant Jae-won sat in his fighter cockpit, one of 48 pilots launching from the carrier UHS Indomitable. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart hammered in his chest. He had seen the picture of Daewon that was circulating on the military networks. A smiling 8-year-old boy. Now that boy was fighting for his life. "All wings, this is Flight Leader," came the voice of Commander Sora over the comm. "Our target is the shield generators on the fortress's north quadrant. We go in fast, we hit hard, we don't stop. They hurt one of ours. We make them pay." "Copy that," Jae-won responded along with the other pilots. His fighter accelerated toward the massive fortress. Explosions bloomed across space as the capital ships continued their bombardment. The Vrethka were returning fire now, bright red energy beams lancing out toward the human fleet. One beam caught a human frigate, the UHS Resolute, on its port side. The ship's shields absorbed most of the hit, but Jae-won could see the damage. They were taking casualties. People were dying, but they kept coming. "Weapons free in 3-2-1 mark," Sora called out. Jae-won's targeting computer locked onto one of the shield generators. He squeezed the trigger. Plasma bolts streaked from his fighter, joined by dozens of others from his squadron. The concentrated fire overwhelmed the generator's local defenses. It exploded in a satisfying burst of sparks and flame. One down, 5 more to go. Inside the Vrethka fortress, chaos reigned. Graxel watched his tactical display with growing horror. The human attack was not random. It was surgical. They knew exactly where to hit, exactly how to maximize damage. "They're targeting our shield grid," an officer shouted. "3 generators down, 2 more failing." "Return fire," Graxel roared. "All batteries concentrate on their flagship." The Crimson Mandate's main weapons, massive energy cannons that could crack a planet's crust, swiveled toward the UHS Defiant. They fired in unison, enough power to vaporize a small city. Admiral Sungmin watched the incoming fire with calm eyes. Helm, evasive pattern delta. Engineering. Divert all available power to forward shields. The flagship rolled, its massive bulk moving with surprising grace. The Vrethka energy beams hit the shields at an angle, dispersing some of their force. The ship shuddered but held. "Damage report," Sungmin ordered. "Forward shields at 60%. Hull integrity intact. No casualties," reported the damage control officer. "Good, weapons return fire. Target their main gun batteries." Jinho grinned fiercely at his console. "With pleasure, sir." The Defiant's weapons spoke. Magnetic accelerator rounds, each one weighing several tons and moving at incredible speed, slammed into the fortress. One round penetrated where the shields had failed, tearing through armor plating and into the interior. Secondary explosions rippled outward. On the fortress, Thulvan clutched a support rail as the ship shook violently. "This cannot be happening. They are humans. They are weak." An explosion nearby sent him sprawling. When he looked up, he saw one of his fellow officers dead, crushed by falling debris. The reality of the situation finally hit him. The humans were not weak. They were terrifying. Sergeant Minseo waited in the boarding pod with her Marine squad. 24 men and women, all in combat armor, all carrying enough firepower to level a building. The pod shook as it detached from their assault ship and accelerated toward the Vrethka fortress. 2 minutes to breach, the pilot called back. Minseo checked her rifle one more time. Next to her, a young Marine named Quan Ho looked nervous. It was his first real combat operation. "Stay close to me," Minseo told him. "Follow your training. We get in. We secure the command center. We capture anyone important. Remember why we're here." "For day one," Quan Ho said quietly. "For day one," the entire squad echoed. The fortress grew larger in the viewport. Minseo could see the damage the fleet had done. Entire sections were venting atmosphere. Fires burned in the void. The Vrethka had thought themselves invincible. They were learning otherwise. Back on New Jeju, Dr. Eunji finally allowed herself a moment of hope. Daewon's vital signs were stabilizing. The nanites were working. The boy was still unconscious, still critically injured, but he would live. "He's going to make it," she said to Hana, who immediately burst into tears of relief. Tae-sung heard it through the glass and sank to his knees, his own tears finally coming. Bora hugged her father, both of them shaking with emotion. Commander Jiho received the update and immediately transmitted it to the fleet. Within seconds, every human ship in the Hanul system knew the child would survive. The relief was profound. But the rage did not diminish. If anything, it grew sharper. Someone had tried to kill a human child. That could not stand unpunished. Lieutenant Jae-won's fighter dodged through a storm of defensive fire as he lined up on the last shield generator. His wingman, a pilot named Da-un, was right beside him. "I've got lock," he reported. "Same here," Da-un confirmed. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. Both fighters fired simultaneously. The shield generator exploded. The fortress's defensive barrier collapsed entirely. "All ships' shields are down," Commander Sora broadcast. "Hit them with everything!" The human fleet unleashed devastation. Without shields, the Vrethka fortress was exposed. Missiles impacted against bare hull. Energy weapons carved through armor. Railgun rounds punched deep into the structure. Admiral Sungmin watched the destruction with no joy, only grim satisfaction. "Signal the boarding teams. They are clear to breach." Minseo's pod hit the fortress hull with a clang. Magnetic locks engaged. Shaped charges detonated, blowing a hole through the damaged armor. The squad poured through into a Vrethka corridor. They were met immediately by enemy fire. Vrethka warriors in powered armor fired energy weapons down the hallway. Minseo's squad took cover and returned fire with disciplined volleys. A Vrethka charged forward wielding a massive weapon. Quan Ho fired, his rounds sparking off the alien's armor. Minseo threw a plasma grenade. It detonated at the Vrethka's feet, overwhelming his shields and sending him crashing to the deck. "Move forward," Minseo ordered. "We need to reach the command center." The Marines advanced through the fortress, encountering resistance at every turn. But human tactics honed through countless simulations and real combat proved superior. They moved as a unit, covered each other, pressed forward relentlessly. In another corridor, a different Marine squad found Vrethka trying to evacuate civilian technicians. The humans let them go. This was not about slaughter. This was about justice. Graxel watched his fortress die around him. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His shields were gone. His weapons were failing. The human fleet was systematically tearing his ship apart. "We must evacuate," one of his officers pleaded. "No," Graxel said. He had made his choice when he ordered his weapons to fire. "We are Vrethka. We do not flee." Tulvan had no such honor. He ran through burning corridors, desperate to reach an escape pod. He rounded a corner and ran straight into a squad of human Marines. Sergeant Mincio leveled her rifle at his face. For a moment, she considered pulling the trigger. This was the one who had hurt Day One. This alien deserved death, but humans were better than that. "On the ground," she ordered. "You're under arrest." Tulvan collapsed, his arrogance finally broken. Human soldiers surrounded him, binding his arms with restraints strong enough to hold even his powerful frame. The main reactor of the Crimson Mandate began to fail. Warning alarms screamed throughout the dying fortress. Admiral Sungmin saw the energy readings spike on his display. "All ships pull back to safe distance," he ordered. "The fortress is going critical." The human fleet retreated smoothly, their formation never breaking. The boarding teams were already evacuating, their primary objectives complete. They brought prisoners with them. Thulvan, several other officers. Evidence of their crimes. Graxel stood alone in his command center as the lights flickered and died. He had underestimated humans. They all had. He hoped someone would learn from his mistake. The reactor containment failed. The Crimson Mandate, pride of the Vrethka Dominion, tore itself apart in a massive explosion. The blast lit up the space around Hanel 7's moon like a second sun. Debris scattered in all directions, burning as it tumbled through the void. Admiral Sungmin checked his timepiece. "From arrival to destruction, 9 minutes and 47 seconds. "Sir, what are your orders?" his executive officer asked. "Send a message to New Jeju. Tell them justice is done. Then open a channel to Earth Command. They're going to want a full report." Sungmin looked at the expanding cloud of debris that had been an enemy fortress. He felt no triumph, only tired satisfaction. The galaxy needed to understand something fundamental about humanity. You could attack human ships. You could contest human territory. You could fight human soldiers, but you did not touch human children, not ever. On New Jeju, Taesung received the news that the fortress had been destroyed. He looked through the glass at his son, still unconscious but alive. He thought about the hundreds of human sailors and Marines who... The debris field that had once been the Crimson Mandate spread slowly across space, glowing fragments tumbling in the darkness. On the bridge of the UHS Defiant, Admiral Sungmin watched the wreckage drift while his crew compiled damage reports. "Sir, final casualty count," his executive officer reported. 17 dead, 43 wounded across the fleet. "The Resolute took the worst of it, but their hull is intact. They can make it home, 17 dead." Sungmin closed his eyes briefly. 17 humans who would never see their families again. They had died avenging a child they had never met. He would write letters to every family personally. It was the least he could do. "And the prisoner status?" he asked. "Tulvan is secured in the brig along with 12 other Vrethka officers. Sergeant Mincio reports they're cooperative. The fight's gone out of them." "Good." Sungmin opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is the Admiral. You performed with excellence today. We came here for justice, and we delivered it. But we also lost shipmates. Honor them by getting everyone else home safely. Begin recovery operations and prepare for jump to New Jeju." Captain Young-soo stood outside the brig on the assault carrier UHS Thunder. Inside, Tulvan sat in a reinforced cell designed to hold dangerous aliens. The Vrethka officer looked smaller now, hunched over, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Young-soo entered the cell area. 2 armed Marines stood guard. He looked at Tulvan through the energy barrier. "Do you understand what you did?" Young-soo asked quietly. Tulvan raised his head. His eyes, so cold and confident hours ago, now showed something that might have been fear. "I struck an offspring. In Vrethka culture, it is not significant. Young ones are raised communally. They are not precious as individuals. Well, you're not in Vrethka culture anymore, Young-Soo said. You're in human custody. And in human culture, children are everything. They're our future, our hope. Every single one of them matters. I see that now, Tulvan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Your entire fleet came. For one small child. Your warriors died for him. I did not understand. No, Young-Soo agreed. You didn't. And now your fortress is dust, your crew is dead or captured, and you'll spend the rest of your life in a human prison. Was it worth it? Was proving your dominance worth all of that? Tulvan had no answer. News of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, carried by automated communication relays and FTL message drones. Within hours, every major species knew what had happened in the Hanel system. On the Galactic Council Station, a massive orbital platform where dozens of species maintained diplomatic relations, the reaction was mixed. The council representative for the Vrethka Dominion, a dignified elder named Kreshnal, listened to the report with growing dismay. A human fleet had destroyed a Dominion fortress ship. Hundreds of Vrethka were dead. It was an act of war. But the reason for the attack was problematic. A Vrethka officer had struck a human child, injured them severely, and humans had reacted with overwhelming force. Kreshnal knew his people's culture valued strength and dominance, but he also knew the Dominion could not afford a full war with humanity. The humans were technologically advanced, militarily capable, and clearly willing to fight when provoked. The destruction of the Crimson Mandate proved that. He requested an emergency session of the council. Ambassador Kyung-Soo received the summons while reviewing reports from Admiral Sung-min. She was humanity's chief representative to the Galactic Council, a position that required endless patience and diplomatic skill. Today, she would need both. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seating for representatives from 47 different species. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some saw invisible light, others in ultraviolet or infrared. But they all understood power, and they had all just witnessed humanity exercise it. Kyung-Soo stood at the human delegation's position. She was alone, as was tradition for emergency sessions. Across the chamber, Kreshnal stood at the Vrethka position. The council chairman, a being made mostly of crystalline structures named Harmonious Thought, rang the convening chime. This session addresses the incident in the Hanul system, the chairman said, their voice resonating through translation devices. Ambassador Kreshnal, you have lodged a formal complaint. Please state your case. Human forces attacked and destroyed a Vrethka military vessel without provocation, Kreshnal began. This is an act of war according to Galactic Convention. We demand reparations and the surrender of the human fleet commander for trial. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several species representatives looked uncomfortable. Others looked curious to see how the humans would respond. Kyung-Soo stepped forward. The Vrethka representative conveniently omits the cause of the human response. A Vrethka military officer, operating in human colonial space without authorization, attacked and nearly killed an 8-year-old human child. We have medical records, witness testimony, and recorded communications to prove this. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the center of the chamber. D1 smiling in a school picture. Then, medical scans showing the devastating injuries he had sustained. Finally, footage from Corporal Hyunwoo's helmet camera showing Tulvan striking the child. The chamber went silent. Several representatives who had children of their own reacted with visible distress. Even species that didn't share humanity's protective instincts could recognize an attack on a helpless juvenile. The human response was proportional to the crime, Kyung-Soo continued. A military officer committed an act of violence against a civilian child. Human military forces responded to protect their colony and ensure justice. The Vrethka fortress was offered an opportunity to surrender. They chose to fight instead. Kreshnal shifted uncomfortably. The child survived. Surely that mitigates the human overreaction. The child survived because of advanced human medical technology and the skill of our doctors, Kyung-Soo replied coldly. The intent to kill was clear, and humanity does not wait to see if our children die before we respond to threats against them. A representative from the Pelthurin Cooperative, an insectoid species known for their logical nature, spoke up. Inquiry. What is humanity's position on future incidents of this nature? Kyung-Soo looked directly at the speaker. Any attack on human civilians, especially children, will be met with immediate and overwhelming military response. We will not debate, we will not negotiate, and we will not wait for authorization. We will act. That is essentially declaring that humanity considers attacks on juveniles to be an automatic casus belli, observed the chairman. That is unusual, perhaps, Kyung-soo acknowledged. But it is also clear. We are transparent about our values and our responses. Any species that chooses to attack human children now knows exactly what will happen. We're actually reducing the chance of future conflict by being explicit. She let that sink in before continuing. Humanity seeks peaceful relations with all species. We trade, we share technology. We participate in council activities in good faith. But we have limits. Our children are that limit. I suggest all species take note. The session continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The evidence was clear. The Vrethka had committed the first aggressive act. The human response, while severe, was not illegal under Galactic Convention. Self-defense and protection of civilians were recognized rights. The Council issued no sanctions against humanity. Instead, they issued a recommendation that all species respect the territorial and cultural boundaries of their neighbors. It was diplomatic language for "don't mess with human kids." Kreshenal, recognizing that his people were in an untenable position, agreed to negotiations. The Vrethka Dominion would disavow Thulvan's actions, pay reparations to Daewon's family, and formally recognize the boundaries of human space. It was humiliating. But it was better than war with humans. On New Jeju, 3 days after the attack, Daewon opened his eyes. His mother was there holding his hand. His father stood nearby, trying not to cry. His sister Bora leaned against the wall, relief washing over her face. "Mom?" Daewon's voice was weak. "What happened?" "You were hurt, sweetheart," Hana said gently. "But you're going to be okay. You're safe now. Did I do something wrong?" The boy looked confused and frightened. That alien seemed so angry. Tae-sung moved closer, putting his hand on his son's head. "No, Daewon. You did nothing wrong. That alien made a very bad choice. But he's been caught. He'll never hurt anyone again. Is Chanwoo okay? And Teacher Mi-young? Everyone else is fine," Hana assured him. "They were all worried about you, though. You're a very popular boy right now." Daewon didn't understand. How could he? He was 8 years old. He didn't know that 17 people had died to avenge him. He didn't know that an entire fleet had crossed 3 star systems because he was hurt. He didn't know that the galaxy's balance of power had shifted slightly because of what happened to him. He was just a child who had been hurt and wanted to know his friends were safe. Maybe that was the point. Maybe that innocence, that fundamental human concern for others even when you're the victim, was exactly what made humanity worth defending. Dr. Yoon-ji checked Daewon's vital signs and smiled. "He's recovering well. The nanites did their job. He'll need physical therapy, but he should." 6 weeks after the incident, Thulvan stood in a courtroom on the Galactic Council station. The chamber was designed to accommodate beings from dozens of different species, with atmospheric controls and gravity adjustments for each section. Thulvan breathed oxygen just like humans, so he stood in the standard environment section, bound in restraints that prevented him from using his considerable strength. The judges were a panel of 5 beings from neutral species. None were human. None were Vrethka. The Galactic Council had insisted on impartial justice. Ambassador Kyung-soo presented the prosecution's case with calm precision. She showed evidence, called witnesses, and built an undeniable picture of what had happened. Corporal Hyun-woo testified about the attack. Dr. Eun-ji provided medical records. Even Teacher Mi-young spoke, her voice shaking as she described watching a child nearly die. Thulvan's defense attorney, a Vrethka legal expert named Vexilon, argued cultural differences. In Vrethka society, offspring were not valued as individuals. Thulvan had not understood the severity of his actions in human cultural context. Kyung-soo's response was simple. Ignorance of another species' values is not an excuse for violence. If Thulvan did not understand human culture, he should not have been operating in human space. The Galactic Convention is clear. Military personnel must respect local customs and laws when entering sovereign territory. The trial lasted 3 days. Journalists from across the galaxy covered it. The proceedings were broadcast live to billions of beings. Everyone wanted to see how this would end. When the judges returned with their verdict, the courtroom was silent. The accused, Thulvan of the Vrethka Dominion, is found guilty of assault on a civilian minor, unlawful military action in sovereign space, in violation of Galactic Convention protocols, the head judge announced. He is sentenced to 20 years imprisonment in a human correctional facility, followed by permanent exile from human space. Thulvan's head dropped. 20 years. The Vrethka were long-lived, but 20 years was still a significant portion of a life. He would spend it among the very species he had considered weak, but he was alive. Many of his crewmates from the Crimson Mandate were not. He supposed he should be grateful. As guards led him away, he passed close to Kyung-soo. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not hatred, something more like pity. "You could have just let us pass," she said quietly. "That's all we wanted. To let children see harvest drones and go home safely. If you had just let them pass, none of this would have happened." Thulvan had no response. She was right. The Vrethka Dominion's reaction to the trial was complicated. Publicly, they accepted the verdict and praised the impartial justice of the Galactic Council. Privately, their military leaders were shaken. High Counselor Marthex reviewed combat recordings from the Crimson Mandate's destruction dozens of times. The speed of the human response, the precision of their tactics, the overwhelming force they brought to bear. "We underestimated them," she said to her military advisors. "We saw them as newcomers, weak, sentimental. We were wrong on all counts." "Should we prepare for war?" one advisor asked. "No," Marthex said firmly. "We should prepare for peace. Real peace, the kind based on respect rather than fear. The humans have made their boundaries clear. We will honor them." The Dominion issued new orders to all military vessels. Human space was off limits. No surveys, no patrols, no shows of force. The cost of provocation was too high. It was not the decision of a weak species. It was the decision of a wise one. Across the galaxy, other species took note. Academic institutions began studying human culture with new intensity. Xenopsychologists published papers on human protective instincts and pack bonding behaviors. Dr. Teleshar, a renowned Pelthoran researcher, presented a lecture at the Galactic Science Academy that became widely cited. "Humans possess an unusual trait among intelligent species," she explained to an audience of scholars. "They extend familial protective instincts beyond blood relations to their entire species, with particular intensity toward juvenile members. This creates a society-wide defensive response when any child is threatened, regardless of personal connection." She displayed data from the Hanul incident. Note the response time. 3 hours from incident to fleet arrival. The humans mobilized military assets across 3 star systems without waiting for central authorization. This suggests a decentralized but unified threat response system based on shared cultural values. Another researcher asked, "Is this not inefficient? Surely such emotional reactions lead to poor strategic decisions." "One would think so," Teleshar agreed. "But observe the execution. Despite the emotional motivation, the human military performed with exceptional precision. They offered surrender. They targeted military assets specifically. They avoided civilian casualties even among their enemies. Rage drove them to act, but discipline drove them to act correctly." The lecture concluded with a recommendation that became standard practice in diplomatic training. When interacting with humans, understand that their young are sacred. Threatening a human child is equivalent to declaring war on all of humanity. Plan accordingly. On Earth, in the halls of government, officials debated the implications of the Hanul incident. Some praised Admiral Sungmin's decisive action. Others worried about the precedent of military commanders acting without authorization. Fleet Admiral Won Shik, the highest-ranking officer in the Human Defense Fleet, addressed the concerns directly in a meeting with civilian leadership. Yes, Admiral Sungmin acted without waiting for approval, he acknowledged, but he was right to do so. A human child was dying. The perpetrators were escaping. Every second mattered. We can't expect commanders in the field to wait 14 hours for a committee decision when lives are at stake. But what if he had been wrong? A government minister asked. What if it had escalated into a full war? Then we would have fought that war, Wanshik replied calmly. And we would have won. But more importantly, the galaxy now knows we will fight. That knowledge prevents future conflicts. No species wants to test whether we're bluffing because they know we're not. The debate continued, but in the end, Admiral Sungmin received a formal commendation rather than censure. His actions were deemed appropriate given the circumstances. Quietly, new protocols were established. Fleet commanders were given expanded authority to respond to threats against human civilians. The message was clear: hurt our people, face immediate consequences. On New Jeju, life slowly returned to normal. Daewon attended physical therapy 3 times a week. The energy burn had damaged muscles and nerves, but human medical technology was remarkable. Within 2 months, he could walk without assistance. Within 3, he could run. His recovery became something of a galactic news story. Journalists requested interviews, which his parents politely declined. Daewon was just a child. He didn't need to be a symbol. But he was a symbol, whether anyone intended it or not. The child who survived, the boy who triggered a war in 9 minutes. The living proof of humanity's values. Chanwoo visited often during recovery. The 2 boys played quiet games at first, then louder ones as Daewon's strength returned. Their friendship deepened, bonded by shared trauma and recovery. Teacher Mi-young returned to work, though she admitted to Hana that she still had nightmares. Counseling helped. Time helped more. Knowing that justice had been served helped most of all. Bora turned 17 and immediately applied to the Fleet Academy. Her test scores were excellent. Her motivation was unquestionable. She was accepted within weeks. When she told her parents Taesung was proud and terrified in equal measure, Hana just hugged her daughter and said, "I know why you're doing this. Just promise me you'll come home." "I promise," Bora said, and she meant it. Commander Jiho was promoted to admiral and given command of frontier defense operations for the entire sector. His experience during the crisis, his calm leadership, and his understanding of both military and civilian needs made him ideal for the role. His first action was to increase defensive capabilities at colonies throughout human space. More ships, better warning systems, faster response times. If another Thulvan appeared, Jiho wanted to ensure they were stopped before they could hurt anyone. 6 months after the incident, the anniversary of New Jeju's founding arrived. The colony held celebrations as they did every year. This time there was an added element. A memorial was unveiled in the central square. It was a simple design, a stone pillar with names engraved. The 17 human sailors and Marines who had died destroying the Crimson Mandate. They had given their lives defending a child most of them never met. Daewon attended the ceremony with his family. He stood quietly as Admiral Sungmin, who had traveled back to New Jeju for the occasion, read each name aloud. Lieutenant Jae-won's name was there. He had been killed when his damaged fighter crashed on return to the carrier. Daewon didn't understand sacrifice yet, but he understood that this person had died because of what happened to him. After the ceremony, Hana knelt beside her son. "Those people didn't die because of you," she said gently, reading his expression. "They died protecting you. There's a difference. They chose to serve. They chose to defend others. That choice was theirs, and it was brave.